We're live, so let's see what we got here. This will be interesting. I need to know. I'm talking to Lee. She's kind of helping me out. So, where is it going to give me access to the chat? It says somewhat you joined here, right?
I
So,
think it'll just pop up. I
so
think it'll just pop up
you think
as
it'll
it
be the
starts.
feed right here,
Yeah.
and so people will actually be So people are showing up now. All right. Yeah, I've definitely got some people. Graham Pong just showed up. Hey there, Graham.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, there was definitely a little bit of excitement around this, so this would be a fun departure.
Yeah. I think it's really cool.
All right. I know some of the people who are showing up and some I don't. So
There's
welcome.
Graham.
What's up? Yeah, there you go. Hey Graham. We're gonna be just chatting here while people join. And I wanted to ask people if you can hear me okay. If you can, let me know. If anyone besides Miguel can hear me out there and the
Your, your
Substackosphere.
biggest fan here.
I think Miguel can hear me. He's acting like he can. All good. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. And could you talk, Miguel, and see if people can hear you?
Yes. Hello. Is there anybody out there? Just not if you can
Just
hear me.
not if you can hear me. Oh, that's great. All right. Can hear us both. Excellent.
Can they see me? Or
Yeah, can you guys see Miguel? You can see my avatar. And a Negroni. Oh wow, someone's
Negroni,
drinking. I
Rachel?
love Negronis. Yes. So visual, awesome. Got to have a cigarette, the authorial moment.
Yeah,
You
the
know.
point of it, I just don't care anymore. It's been a long summer already. I need to chill out here.
That's
I
right.
really do need to.
That's great. You haven't been busy, right?
Oh my God. I think, yeah, it's been, from everywhere I've been hit. So it's been a long summer, busy summer, but, that's life, as, Frank Sinatra sang. So
Was doing the whole song and dance around the traditional publishing schedule more or less difficult or time consuming than you imagined?
yeah, it was certainly very time consuming. I think I did so far about 60 podcasts and radio appearances. And it's a great problem to have, but yeah, they were draining. I still have many more throughout the summer. And then once the Elvis's, the day he passed on August 16th, I'm sure there'll be another surge. So
Oh,
that has been, yeah, definitely consuming.
oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's great. I've caught a few of your interviews, so that's been fun to kind of stay in the loop a little bit. And I also noticed there's a really wide variety of venues and different audiences who are interested in the book, which I kind of anticipated given the stature of Elvis and the widespread appeal, including dislike, I suppose, by
Well,
by
that's
some people.
that's the surprising part, Saul, is that the Elvis fandom is still circling their wagons around conservative Christian Elvis, Southern boy. So they've been basically shut me out, the mainstream Elvis fandom. And so and those that have come out just basically in attack mode, which is good because at first, the old saying, first they ignore you, then they call you crazy, then they start listening to you. So I think I'm in the part of they're calling me crazy because again, the Elvis fandom just doesn't want to see this, even though it's been hidden in plain sight for so many decades. So
Right,
that's been
right.
the interesting part. I'm also surprised so far that in the book, the parts on Carl Jung and Philip K. Dick have pretty much been ignored by most podcast hosts, even in the occult and so forth. People have just gravitated more towards Elvis, the magician, the shaman, all his feats and all that.
Trickster.
Yeah, they've kind of been doing that, so it's been kind of surprising, but it is a process, as you know.
Yeah, when you do anything creative, I mean, this isn't your first rodeo. You never really know what people are going to be interested in. It's always surprising. Every one of my books has surprised the heck out of me in terms
Hmm.
of what really seemed to strike a chord. Things that I loved, I thought were meaningful or interesting, nobody talks about half the time. And obscure weird things suddenly gain traction.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just the way it is, and then sometimes other ideas from a book catch fire at different times. So, but I'm grateful. I'm just a little surprised, not so surprised by the Elvis fandom, because again, they've invested so much in this image, like we all do. We always invest certain images in people, gods, historical figures. So it's hard to change. So,
Absolutely. And I mean, these are the people who think that denial is a river in Egypt, right?
well, yeah, that's for sure. But again, I know I have my blind spots. I've had my blind spots in the past. So that's just,
I'm I lost your audio. Let's see.
sorry.
Now you're back. Your internet
Yeah, yeah.
connection did something wonky.
Yeah, somebody gave me a phone call went through. And so I didn't answer it, but for some reason it interrupted. Well, I guess we know something else about Substack.
We've learned, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
really
yeah.
hoping that they get their act together sooner rather than later and allow people to broadcast off of their desktops or their laptops because it's really kind of onerous to have to do it on the phone.
Yeah. Well, TikTok started that way and eventually you get the money to facilitate and expand. So
That
I'm
actually
sure.
happened today, right? That Substack had really big news about funding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they I put a note on my Substack earlier today that of the post from Substack, and it was a media future to believe in. So they just got $100 million to build a new economic engine for culture,
Mm.
which I thought was really, really cool. And so they're putting that into play. And I left a note. We aim to prove this is Substack. We aim to prove that a media app can be fun and rewarding without melting your brain, an escape from the doom scroll, and a place to take back your mind. And I wrote, "Speaking my language."
Well, that's what they say, but they want you to doom scroll on Substack.
Absolutely,
The only
absolutely.
place is outside, touching grass and hugging trees is the only place.
Without
But they can,
getting the doom scroll.
right, be interested
Yeah,
in some sort of fake ecosystem. But so far, Substack is good because they are very much free speech, as much as I can tell, and I'm all for that. A lot of people expressing themselves, and they're good at getting you connected with like-minded people, and so far so good.
yeah, that's right. That's right. I'll take it, and I like the idea that they're getting more funding to develop and roll because the whole idea is ultimately to compete on some level, a small scale to begin with, for sure, but with something like YouTube, and to be able to give these lives and well, live streaming in general a kind of YouTube feel, probably with super chats and all that kind of thing. So I look forward to that day.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the great thing about Substack is it was making blogging great again. So hopefully they don't move away from that. But I understand this is 2025 and you got to add some video. Just the way it is in
Yeah, it's
podcasting.
all of it. It's really all of it. Let me do one thing really fast and we'll get started. I'm just mixing myself up a quick Negroni. Just kidding. I'm having a black cherry Zevia. How's that? So, all right. So I'm gonna jump in if that's okay with you, Miguel, and we'll go from there.
I'm ready, man.
All righty. So, hello, this is Saul Luckman, and welcome to Conversations on Saul Luckman Uncensored in its new home at saulluckman.substack.com. Please take off your sandals and enjoy this candid conversation between conscious creators about creativity, culture, and the cosmos. If you have questions for today's speakers, that's me and Miguel, please put them in all caps in the chat. Otherwise, I ask that you write in predominantly lowercase so I can tell the difference at a glance and I know what to ignore. Just kidding. Today, it's my pleasure and honor to welcome my friend and fellow writer, Miguel Connor. And to get this show started, I'd like to share some of my brief review of his amazing new book. This review was written back in February, and I stand by every word to this day. The review is titled A Magical Mystery Tour of the Life of the King, and it's my review of the Occult Elvis. Thank you very much. All right. So, several years ago, I listened to a number of super fascinating and uber intelligent interviews by author Miguel Connor on his Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio YouTube channel before being invited on as a guest to discuss my own highly Gnostic novel I'd recently written. He must have thought I was a reasonably swell guy because this was followed by a second interview in which Miguel and I discussed an equally Gnostic nonfiction book I just published centered on cults and cultishness. Recently, I approached Miguel to propose round 3 on my latest, also highly Gnostic book. In the process, I learned that his own new book had just been made available for pre-sale by Inner Traditions, a publisher that, to begin a string of fortuitous connections between my work and Miguel's, used 3 of my paintings on Itzhak Beery's best-selling trilogy of books on shamanism. Miguel's instantly fascinating new book on the mystical and magical life of the king, The Occult Elvis, instantly piqued my interest so much that I requested a review copy, which he kindly forwarded. I was struck while reading it by further examples, to use a term associated with Carl Jung, who features prominently in both of our books, synchronicity. Both texts were framed by the context of rock and roll. Both featured male rock icons who died tragically young, Jim Morrison in my case. Both looked the Grim Reaper square in the eye. Both examined the Matrix-esque idea that we're living in a kind of simulation and explored such fringe concepts related to a mentally constructed reality as egregores and tulpas. In brilliantly scrutinizing Elvis's and author Philip K. Dick's relationship to their deceased twins, Miguel's book also delved deeply into a constellation of ideas having to do with one's relationship with the other self, daemons, spirit guides, etc. And while my latest book doesn't focus on this subject matter, some years ago I published a novel focused on doppelgangers in the parallel otherworld of dreams. So you can add another striking serendipity to the list. Little did I know when I reached out to Miguel that we'd been working on, well, practically the same book. Joking aside and acknowledging the many important differences in our texts, I was reminded of the concept of zeitgeist and infectious ideas seeming to surf the morphic wave field from one mind to another. Be that as it may, if I might summarize what I found most compelling about the occult Elvis, it was this. Miguel is as gifted a wordsmith as I've encountered in the nonfiction realm. In terms of style, his book reads like something out of Rolling Stone, only far more conscious and daringly metaphysical. The occult Elvis takes a topic that some might consider trivial or even chintzy, the kitschy trickster king of rock and roll, and makes it not just timely, but absolutely relevant for today's would-be spiritual free thinkers. Are you a Beatles or Elvis person? Echoing Uma Thurman in the role of Mia Wallace in Pulp Fiction, Miguel asks this question toward the beginning of his splendid opus. Much like the author before encountering the esoteric Elvis, I absolutely knew I was a Beatles person. Now I know that I'm not. In a sense, this book changed me. What more can one ask for? All right. So, obviously, it's a really, really good book, and I want to just open up maybe this space for you to share a little bit about the journey of coming up with the idea, writing the book, getting it published. If you could sort of summarize its trajectory, and bring us up to speed, because I didn't know you were even working on the book, and then suddenly there it was, and I'm sure there was a lot more to it, like the iceberg. All I saw was the tip.
Well, yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. Thank you very much. I'm not having a Negroni like you and Rachel. I'm having blackberry lemonade, seltzer, sparkling water.
Very
But
nice.
but it's still refreshing on a July evening and so forth. Yeah, God, I don't even know what to say. I'm drained, man. That book broke me. Not that it broke me. The problem is, books really take so much out of your soul, right? Soul, they really do. I mean, you are, as the old saying, writing is easy. You just get in front of your typewriter and bleed. So they do take a pound of flesh from your psyche, even as you think you're feeling energized, especially when there's forces tapping into you, like the voice of Elvis tapping into me. And when I finished the Elvis book, suddenly another voice came up to me and said, "No, you forgot about Elvis 2.0, which is David Bowie." So I immediately started writing the Bowie book, and now I have the first draft. I think it's ready to go to propose it to the publisher. But man, Bowie and Elvis are demanding, and I am completely drained. It's almost like you said, what's an Elvis person? I never want to give people the answer versus a Beatles person. I try because I want people to make up their own minds. Like when I say in Aeon Bide, write your own gospel, live your own myth, I never define it. And sometimes I change the answers because I want it to be personal. But for an Elvis person, I think it means to be a shaman, a Gnostic. And doesn't, there's not even a difference because the word shaman means one who knows. When people can spend years talking about what is Gnosticism, I'm like, well, if it's shamanism, then you've got the answer. You don't have to get too excited about it. But and the journey of the shaman is always self-destruction, dismemberment, like Osiris. It's a painful journey, and it's a huge price that every shaman has to pay. Like Paul Levy said, we're all shamans and wounded healers in training. And once you go down that road, you start to see your life and your soul just literally being dismembered in a way that Morrison and Elvis saw that too. And again, it is a path of destruction, and in a way, it's a path of almost a sort of sacrifice to your tribe. I mean, in a way, Jesus was the ultimate shaman too. Some have called him the great wounded healer. So I'm honored I was chosen. But again, once you go down that Orpheus road, and again, Orpheus is also the great archetypal image of the shaman. It's you go into the underworld, you get your ass kicked, and at the end of the day, you're going to get dismembered. And
Mm.
I don't know if I would have chosen differently if I'd known when the voice came to me years ago. I probably would have done it anyway, but um, I don't know what else to say, Saul, and I'm glad you guys are here to hear me vent. But what do you think?
Well, someone just read my mind in the comments. Phil Hughes wrote the one word that I was thinking very loudly, Chiron.
Oh, of
You know.
course, the great wounded healer himself.
hmm
Yes, right, bingo.
So yeah, I think you know, writing itself very often is a kind of shamanic act of expiation and trying to make sense of things. I like the Gnostic term for sort of a different term for self-described Gnostics back in the day, or that wasn't their name, but the telestai, those who are aimed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's really cool in a way. I like that better than Gnostic in some ways because it suggests a direction that you may know things that don't matter. You can have lots of information. I did a follow-up to Get Out of Here Alive. You wrote a second book, and I wrote a second book too, which is
Right.
really funny. And the second book is also musically themed. It's Out Through the Indoor.
Oh,
So
I
it's
wonder
it's
where
this
that's from.
yeah.
Wonder where that's from.
So it's this free ebook on my Substack. You go to the new tab on my Substack, and it's Out Through the Indoor. But in that book, I looked at the shamanic concept of not doing and unlearning or not knowing,
Mhm.
and how important that is right now, because I feel like there is such an amazing glut of information. We talked about Substack and the creating a doom scrolling free zone and all this stuff. And that's certainly one of the dangers of this incredible glut of information. But the other is that we're creating this kind of, you like to use the phrase, a Library of Alexandria, right? And that sounds all well and good. And then you have someone like Borges, the Argentine writer, who looked at the Library of Alexandria concept as a kind of a soulless labyrinth where you get trapped, and so
Right.
that's the danger that we run into. I don't know exactly what got me on that subject, but here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, I guess maybe we're trying to do some therapy. I don't know. We're just talking shop here. I mean, yeah, there's because of all that's been going on and the drainage and the weight of these books. And again, there's no guarantee. You're called. You have to do your duty, and sometimes the gods throw their husks away, and sometimes the shaman, as I write in the Elvis book, he ends up being, a drug addict, overweight ex-singer who with really bad health. And there are people who've written, yeah, the shaman always ends up broken at the end of the road by the road, babbling to himself. But so I've been trying to look at some wisdom, and I was reading Anthony DeMello, who I really like. His book Awareness has always been one of those books I grab onto when the seas get choppy. And he talked up, and in one place he said the mistake people make is that wisdom is not adding things, wisdom is subtracting things. And I went, well, damn it. Well, I should have read this 10 years ago. Because it is, even wisdom is deprogramming. It's getting down to the simplicity of things when everything makes sense and you're really connected and in the vibe of everything that's out there. It's not knowledge.
Well, it's interesting because if you'll allow me to quote you from your book, the Occult Elvis, you're defining gnosis as not really knowledge, and I loved this definition because it got into the higher octave of this phenomenon. And you described gnosis as experience with the transcendental, an ecstatic untethered union with undivided divinity. Gnosis is the ultimate achievement for any human and the ultimate way to find the means to live a noble purpose on earth and help others find their way to their celestial origins. And I actually quoted that in Out Through the Indoors. So
Mm.
you're immortalized in it's in that book, for what it's worth. Probably not very much. But I love that because it really goes. It's this idea that gnosis and knowledge are somehow synonyms that really gets my goat. It's way different than that.
No, no, it's always meant to be ecstatic. It's always, again, it's shamanistic. It's transformational. It's not simply adding to something or some sort of growth. It's alchemical, and it's a direct experience. So, and if you want knowledge of the divine, you have to melt into the divine and melt into these higher forces, which can be pretty destructive. Of course, your old life is meant to end for something new, and even then, I mean, the idea of most Gnostics is that yes, I have this experience, but there's that sort of bodhisattva vibe where you want to stay and help others wake up, or and just stick around for the game. What's the famous sort of Hindu saying? Life is a game that must be played but cannot be won. And I wonder if the Gnostics knew that everything would be cyclical, but they were here for the game. Or what did Ursula Le Guin say? How you play is what you win. So I think that's the end of the day. Gnostics being accused of trying to transcend reality is not is again one of those annoying tropes that still lingers in the world. Like they were like Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate was Gnostic, but they kind of got the message wrong. You're not supposed to jump on the comet and leave others because waking up is empathic, and you want others to wake up too, and you want to do what you can to stop the suffering.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you bring up the distinction there between those two ways of interfacing with so-called reality, because in this new ebook, playing off of many of these same ideas, I distinguish between the hero's journey, and you gave me a beautiful quote for the book, a useful guide for the hero's journey. I distinguish between the hero's journey and what I like to call we're getting a lot of noise. I'm not sure where that's coming through from. Do you know?
There you go. Let me see. Is that better? There was a fan on.
Maybe
That
that's it.
maybe that was it.
I think it's gremlins in the kitchen banging pots and pans.
Probably.
But the idea is that you have this classic Joseph Campbell version of the hero's journey, where you go off on your shamanic journey and you come back with gifts for the tribe, and then you have the maybe more of the Gnostic version of the hero's journey in some ways. That would be something that Gnostics would understand, but I think they also were interested in the ultimate hero's journey, which is when you blow this popsicle stand. You figure out how to get out of here and screw everybody else. Really, I think both were in play and still are. The thing about the screw everybody else part of that, however, is that what you do is you trailblaze a path of transcendence when you're able to do that, and you leave a kind of morphic resonance. Rupert Sheldrake likes to talk about how the more things are ingrained in the morphic field, the easier they get for people to replicate. It's like someone finally ran the 4-minute mile, and then everybody could run the 4-minute mile who tried to do it really hard. So I think it's okay to be a little bit selfish when we're talking about this inner human technology of transcendence that actually does require a lot of Gnostic, Hellenistaic focus to unearth.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I love that. Yeah, that makes sense. I think with the Gnostics, and I was talking to Ola Wolny yesterday. She was on my show, and she really, I think she nails it. And I've mentioned it before that the Gnostics, their primordial myth was still the goddess falling into the underworld, whether it's Inanna going down into the underworld and being, again, there's a whole shamanistic, she gets put on hooks and torn apart, or Kybel falls from heaven for some revenge and she gets she goes from a man into a woman. And we see that in so many myths, Ishtar and so forth. And I think that's the primordial one of the Gnostics, is the fallen, the divine feminine, usually represented as a female, the fall of the soul into the world, the challenges of falling into the underworld, the destruction, and then eventually the redemption of coming out of it, and how that myth lights a way for others. So I think
Mm,
that's very much,
mm,
pretty much the primordial myth of the, not obviously with them, it's Sophia. They replaced, Kybel and Inanna and Isis, and those they replaced her with Sophia, who is based on them, and of course the lost Shekinah or wisdom figure of the
mm.
Hebrew Bible.
Yes, yes. Oh, well stated. Yeah, that's golden. I think that it's really important to see the roots of that way of thinking. When I first encountered uh, you know John Lash's version of Gnosticism and the whole fallen goddess scenario, I was greatly inspired by it. I ended up writing a novel about it, and
Right.
you know that, and so it really kind of took hold of me. But I learned certainly that, and I knew pieces of this, that it was based on much older tropes and figures, and it does appear absolutely transhistorical in that sense, and almost archetypal.
Hmm. Yeah, that definitely for sure. And what was the other god? And of course, the other trope is that Sophia simply is a cipher for the great mother of the Hebrews. God, what was the name of the goddess? I'm drawing a blank. I put it all these other goddess. Who was Mrs. Yahweh in ancient times?
Oh gosh, why am I
Some
blanking?
Yeah, somebody in the chats would know that the groves of, it even says in the Old Testament, the groves of Asherah. Thanks, Graham.
Ashira, yes.
Always, yes.
I just
So
pulled it up. Yeah.
so she's
Yes.
basically a cipher for it. So her fall from the pleroma is actually her fall from the consciousness of humanity, because Ashira got suppressed and got thrown into the darkness. And it was the Gnostics who were keeping this sort of very ancient shamanism, this animistic lore that was part of the Mediterranean, the Hebrew lands, and so forth, and it got lost, and they simply repackaged Ashira as Sophia, and of course the archons are and the demiurge are symbolical for the solar cult of this again repackaged Yahweh, who was probably Marduk, and so forth. So you see, that's another way you can look at Sophia, which is why I like her myth, because it's so multifaceted. You can, like Elvis, you can see her in so many dimensions and angles. It's almost endless.
That's really true, because you can take the archons in a very prosaic, pragmatic,
Mhm.
human direction, or in an extraterrestrial, metaphysical,
Psychological. Yeah.
AI type of direction. You can go both ways with it. Yes, absolutely fascinating. I loved working with that myth, as a writer, because of exactly what you just said, is that it's so multifaceted. You can write anything about it with a modicum of intelligence, and it can produce all kinds of multiple interpretations that are quite interesting.
Oh, agreed, agreed. There's so much, and that's why Carl Jung always said the Gnostics, they knew the secrets of the soul, the psyche, because he saw that again they had gone deeper than most other traditions. They went to these very dangerous primordial places, and they really came back with some very forbidden treasure. And Jung saw this, and he understood this, and I think that's why the Gnostics will forever be a threat to the psyche or the well-being of the mainstream world, because that's dangerous information. Again, freedom, liberation, the destruction of your old self, the calling back for these powers of chaos from Ashira to Ishtar and so forth. I mean, we can't have a proper civilization with this stuff, just like we couldn't have a proper civilization when Elvis came. These are threats. Shamanism is a threat. It's kind of it's sort of tacitly accepted in tribes, but the priest and the king would rather not have these guys around, even they're very necessary for the well-being of the tribe.
Right. I think the same goes for astrologers and other figures who are bringing this arcane knowledge to the table, because it's can be very empowering. It can be dangerous. It can be tricky and deceptive. Also, you think you're getting good news, and you're actually getting news about your own destruction.
Right.
We see
Yeah.
that over and over again.
Or telling you that your life is a fraud. Nobody wants to hear that, but yeah, our lives are frauds. We are
Yeah.
constructs, program constructs.
Yeah, that's so true. That's really true. There was the wonderfully powerful uh Oracle of Cumae, is that what I'm thinking of? Back in the Roman times, and she would write on leaves, and so, and her books that she wrote were so valuable to the I guess the Roman emperor and the ruling class, because they basically told the future of the Roman Empire, and so yeah, that's not all of her news was very, very flattering or good.
No, no, rarely is, rarely is. So,
So you've talked a good bit about Elvis, which is obviously the subject of the current book that's out there. Could you cross over and share your your basis analysis of the character in relation to this discussion of David Bowie? Like, why David Bowie? The voice spoke to you, and suddenly you're on the writer's rack again, suffering mightily.
I'm dying here. I'm dying. David Bowie's just as demanding and just as powerful. Well, the voice said he said it very simple. The first one is going to sound strange. He said, "I'm in pain and I need to be redeemed." And people may say, "Well, what's going on?" But when you suddenly you watch his death ritual Black Star, and you start analyzing it and breaking down, and others have noticed this. Again, this is something, I'm no genius, but David Bowie's admitting he is the demiurge. He is Saturn, even though he went, as I show in the book, went through incredible challenges. He went through incredible mystical experience, overcame addiction, overcame dark magic, all that, and seemed to, ended up living a very good life, married, taking care of his daughter, just a round guy towards the end of his life. He admits that he is the demiurge. And that was kind of surprising. Why would he do that right before he dies? It's not like he's saying, I'm so great, remember my life and what I did and all that. This is a very dark journey where it seems even Major Tom has fallen. So
Mm, mm.
that made me to go through that and realize, why had David Bowie fallen and was still fallen? Why is he still stuck in some dimension of Saturn? And what we can do to redeem him? The other one is, yeah, it is kind of the positive part, and that's the fact that he really is Elvis 2.0. He really is an extension of what Elvis was, the sort of space age messiah for a modern time, who was really trying to heal and help and move his tribe through the different changes in history, him specifically Western Europe and the UK, and how both Elvis and Bowie were trying to help the outcasts, the loner, the misfit, the magician, and all those at the edges of town find their voice and find and feel wanted or understood, but also how he helped free peoples to their potential, whether it was who they were sexually, artistically, racially, and all that. And Elvis and Bowie are an extension and a continuation. And we could start from even the very beginning. Elvis and David Bowie were both born on January 8th. So they're Capricorns. Both had abusive mothers. Both grew up in poverty. Both had a fascination with Captain Marvel. I mean, that's just in their childhood. Both had siblings they lost. Elvis lost his twin. Bowie lost his beloved brother Terry to schizophrenia. Both had gifts. Both had UFO experiences. And you start seeing these parallels that keep going on and on and on. But then Bowie, of course, understood this and actually tapped into the Elvis force, because Elvis was obviously one of his heroes. He talks about, he remembers seeing his cousin, female cousin, dancing to Hound Dog. And Bowie had like a spiritual awakening then. He said, "This is it. This is what I'm going to do. This is the sound of freedom. This is what art is about." And he kept copying Elvis. I mean, his designer, his suit designer for for Ziggy Stardust there, you say, no, we were definitely emulating the jumpsuit over Elvis. And even when he would end his shows, his manager Tony DeFries would say, David Bowie has left the building. And all you see all these sort of Elvis copying, but he's innovating them. He's matching them or elevating to sort of the science fiction astronaut era that was the 70s. And the truth is, Elvis knew of David Bowie. They knew each other. Bowie saw Elvis live in concert, and they exchanged notes and all that. So that's the part of the book, plus showing people that Bowie, and I've showed this to people who were both Gnostic scholars and Bowie's fanatic, is that Bowie was very overtly influenced by Gnosticism. I mean, he knew the Gnostics from an early age. He knew Jung, he knew William Burroughs, he read all the books by like Elaine Pagels and all these others. So Bowie's music and life is extremely dependent on Gnostic philosophy and ideology and aesthetics. So that's basically the book, and there's so much more.
That is absolutely fascinating. That really, really is. So the conscious copying, emulating, and copying, and transforming the some of the tropes and the mannerisms, costumes, ideas from Elvis. Did any of that, in your estimation, translate uh, to the music itself? You know, because when you hear Elvis and you hear David Bowie, they sound like they are from different planets, pretty much.
but they're not.
But
Once you
they're
start,
not, right? That's your point. That's
once you
fascinating to
take off
me.
the veil, you'll see the same person. It's yeah, it seems like it, but it's not. It really is. Uh, for sure. I mean, yeah, again, Bowie, of course, takes things to what was happening in his time, dystopias, falling cultures, and other things. And Bowie takes this more against space age Gnosticism, which he got from William Burroughs and other figures. So he was to, that's what he wanted to do. That was the time he was with. But it's very much the same message. I mean, there's a, it's, I want to get to the movie Sinners. I don't know if you've seen it, but remind me because it really makes, it clarifies what music is. But yeah, it's the same thing. In fact, I think in the Buddha, what's the song? The Buddha of, I forgot the Buddha. Oh, the Buddha of the suburbs, Bowie says, Elvis is English. He's trying to appropriate him. He's trying to, and then, you've heard the song Golden Years, right?
Yes.
Yeah, from station to station. Bowie wrote it for Elvis. And the story goes that one story goes that Elvis turned it down, or the Colonel Parker turned it down. But the other story is that he gave it to his wife, Angie Bowie, and she got cold feet because she was just too afraid to go to Elvis with it. But he wrote Golden Years for Bowie. And before Elvis died, according to Dwight Yoakam, Elvis went to Bowie and asked him to produce his album. Imagine what an album that would have been, especially because Bowie was known as this perfect. He was an amazing producer. I mean, he can make Lou Reed sound good, but yeah, I hate Lou Reed is so overrated. I don't think it's like yeah. But anyway, he,
Well,
you know,
I'll take his one song "Ecstasy" and call him a genius. And you can
okay,
you can wrap me in Scotch tape if you need to.
okay, hey, to each his own. I'm not gonna. I'm just coming from my subjective meat sack here, but yeah. But so imagine that album, and then there's of course there's some great stories that Elvis only played at Madison Square Garden once in '72, I believe. He did 4 shows, and Bowie went to see him, but he went all decked out as Ziggy Stardust. He had like the orange big wig, and what I always like laugh because you know who else went to see Elvis on those 4 shows? Donald Trump. Now I imagine I don't know if they were in the same show, but imagine Elvis looking down and there's two like orange lights bouncing up and down or walking through the crowd.
Oh
Trump
my
and
goodness.
Trump and
Two
Bowie,
orange men.
two orange men. But no, he did notice it because Bowie showed up late and he was dressed up, and this is the United States in '72. They had no idea who Ziggy Stardust was, so he's there. So all the crowd is turning around and he's making a distraction, and Elvis just gives Bowie this really dirty look, and Bowie was forever crushed. He's like, I went to
Oh
see my
no.
idol and he gave me a dirty look. And then afterwards he wanted to they had like an RCA party and he wanted to meet him and he had it set up, and Bowie's like, the king of rock and roll is going to meet the queen of rock and roll. I hope they know that I'm younger than him, and just being a real bitch. But that never
Uh-huh.
happened, and Bowie was completely crushed. But then he went back to Angela, and he told her, he said, "Wow, those even at 72, already what 18 years since Elvis started, he has a way of making women go crazy. It's his magnetism is like, and nothing I've ever seen." And Bowie had already seen the Beatles and Pink Floyd and all that. It's just I don't know what it is about. He's amazing. And Angie goes, "Well, didn't you know that Elvis was sexy?" And Bowie goes, "Yes, but now I know how he does it." And needless to say, young teenage girls became the foundation for David Bowie's fandom for the next years. Whatever he tapped into it, even though he was playing the, I'm gay Bowie and all that. No, teenage girls were all about him. And then years later, Elvis wrote him a note before his tour and said, "Good luck with your tour." And Bowie kept that note till the day he died. So I'm babbling, but that's stuff that
Oh,
is
this is
in the book.
great stuff. Wow, there's so many questions I have, but before I ask those, and you had talked about the movie Sinners too. I'm curious about that. So let's remember to circle back around on that one. Um, do you know the French musician Serge Gainsbourg?
No.
Yeah, it's fascinating figure who I think somehow might be part of this discussion of kind of Gnostic shamans of the stage. Very, very fascinating.
Really?
He's considered one of the one of the great musicians of the 20th century. He had an affair with Brigitte Bardot. He was married to
Oh,
Jane
wow.
Birkin. He did many songs that you've probably actually heard, and he had a very famous moment with who was it? Which it was Whitney Houston, I think,
Mm.
back in when he was like in his 60s, and he made a kind of vulgar pass at her on stage during an interview and all. It was just a
Oh,
crazy,
boy.
crazy guy, and really drank himself and smoked himself into a situation. But he actually he did a song about basically his spoof reggae version of La Marseillaise, the French national anthem, and then later went to purchase the manuscript of that song, the actual score of the song, and acquired it and was interviewed because the price was run up a lot on this at the auction, and the person interviewing him, the journalist, asked him how high he was willing to have gone, to acquire this. And he says, I was prepared to bankrupt myself utterly. But he got accused of being like a Nazi because he did a song, various songs that actually made fun of Nazism in a lot of ways, but what ended up being completely misunderstood and being the guy that you love to hate and all of that. So Serge Gainsbourg could be a very interesting uh, cross-cultural figure, from
Yeah.
continental Europe, operating mostly in French, but with a good number of English songs as well.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I don't think
So,
you can say that
tell
about
me more
Bowie.
about. Sorry.
You say that about Bowie. Bowie was overtly promoting the Nazis. He got lost for a while.
Yeah,
Once,
right, right. Yeah, there was a lot of weirdness there, and a lot of people have made some connections between Bowie and Gainsbourg. So that's not just out of the blue. There's some there for sure. So you had mentioned Sinners, this new movie that came out in 2025. Just came out.
mm,
I have not seen it. Set in 1932 in the Mississippi Delta, as Michael B. Jordan in dual roles as criminal twin brothers who return to their hometown to start again when they are confronted by a supernatural evil.
that's it. That's the movie, and I knew it was going to blow me away, and it didn't fail because so much of the occult Elvis is in there. And I think I hope both the movie and the book can show people that there is a powerful primordial magic out there, that there is such a thing as being an American, and that includes seeing our shadow. And the movie delivers on that. I mean, it just overtly starts with this idea that there are these gifted singers. Now, by singers, again, you're talking about a shaman because the movie does have a voodoo witch, but there's this singer who has this gift, this Orpheus gift that can tear the veil between life and death, which is of course the great symbol for going into the liminal spaces, or as they call the blues, the crossroads. And that's what
The
the movie's
Crossroads. Yep.
about, because there is
Yep.
this talented singer who's so powerful that he does break the veil. And suddenly, and there's one scene, all these shamans from Asia to Africa, from rock stars to rappers, all these shamans converge in one place, singing this song, singing their tunes, this sound modality, these vibrations that can change the gods, that can create portals and all that. The only problem in the movie is that it does attract darkness. It attracts a very powerful Irish vampire who, these idiot reviewers are like, well, that represents white supremacy. It's like, no, the vampires talks about this ancient animistic religion we've been talking about from Ashira, before the Abrahamic gods taught people about heaven and hell, and man had dominion over the animals. And he's telling this Orpheus guy, no, no, there was a time when man, women, and animal were one, and we were connected to the land and all that. But The problem is that the vampire wants the Orpheus singer to be his so he can become very powerful, and the voodoo witch. And, that's more or less the plot of it. But again, it goes right to the idea of the shaman, the singer being a shaman who's tapping into these ancient animistic magic. They got, repackaged as the blues or Pentecostal or gospel, and the power that it has, and the crossroads too. Again, Robert Johnson, as I talk about in my book, Elvis
Yes,
goes to the
yes.
crossroads, and all these themes are in Sinners, and it's really it's an amazing story, and I love it. And again, we go right back to shamanism because at the crossroads, yeah, you find the devil, but he's more of the trickster devil from Africa, and you find also other tricksters, Hermes, Hecate, even Krishna is at the crossroads. At the crossroads is where you can go to gain that fire from the gods, that gift that can burn you, but it can also liberate you. And those themes are both in Elvis and also in Sinners. And then the idea of singing, because in the movie, this gifted singer, the shaman, he's there singing, I left my wife and then I end up in the Delta, Mississippi. And you're going, well, these lyrics are, gay, but it's not the lyrics. It's what's underneath the lyrics. The lyrics are like Jesus saying, I give the fools the parables, but those who know I give the mysteries. It's the energy underneath the lyrics. It's something so undescribable, but that you can feel it, that the lyrics are again almost for show. So going back to Bowie or Elvis, or even going back to, you might listen to a rap song and it's just silly lyrics. It's again, what's underneath? What's the mystery religion underneath the music? That's the true shamanism. That's the true power, the Orpheus power. And that's something that in the movie Sinners, the protagonist Miles shares, and so did Elvis, and so did Bowie.
Someone, Christina Marier, said that
Oh, hey.
Michael B. Jordan is allegedly a Babalawo. So you've got this,
Oh,
Yoruba priest, with the high priest, or the Orisha Ifa.
wow.
Yeah, so that's I
I didn't know that.
can't verify that, but it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, I'm no fan of Ryan Coogler. I didn't think the Black Panther movies, they were just entertaining. Didn't care. I didn't watch the Rocky movies, but man, in this one, he tapped deep into some powerful things. And yeah, props to Michael B. Jordan if he's into that sort of forbidden stuff, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, yeah, I encountered that when I lived in Brazil, this whole,
Yeah, of
Iemanjá was
course.
my figure, and she was a
My
kind of
mother,
sort of a
my mother
trickster
took
goddess,
me. Yeah, my mother took me to a ritual when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, we went out to the ocean and watched her as they take us to
Yes,
the ocean.
yes,
So yeah,
for her day, or I think it's February 2nd,
yeah,
they will go out and, um, give her gifts. She was a vain goddess, so they'll give her mirrors and combs and beautiful necklaces and
right.
various offerings, because she was willing to help and was considered to be a I guess, a a good force in many ways, but she was also inclined to take offense. Let's put it that way.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what these goddesses do. That's their
That's what these
prerogative.
goddesses
That's their
do.
prerogative. Yeah.
Every goddess I've ever met's been like that.
You're talking about someone who has altars to Artemis and Santa Muerte, two of the most demanding female deities in the cosmos.
Oh man! So this is in your home?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
They
Yeah.
chose me. I didn't choose them.
Wow. That's really, really powerful. So I wanted to go back to this. We've got about 10 minutes or so before we open up the floor to a few questions, and I know your time is valuable. I really, really appreciate you downloading your gnosis on us, brother. That's amazing stuff you've been sharing. But
That's fine.
why do you think how do you interpret this idea that Bowie was seeing himself in the role or as the actual demiurge? What do you think he was? Do you think this was metaphorical for him, or that he actually believed he was like the incarnation? Like, for example, I have an interview I did with Chris Mathieu from a few years ago on Forbidden Knowledge TV, and the interview was called "Are We the Archons?" You know, it's sort of the same concept, like looking at the shadow, looking at our role in this force, our part of the dance, whatever, you know. But for me, it was more like you know, symbolic, and you know, we are sort of the creators in a lot of ways of what we experience. And so the archons are part of that creation in a way, and then they appear to act upon us, but it's all part of this kind of dance. But with Boy, it seems like he might have actually gone a little more off the deep end.
Yeah, I don't know about the deep end. I think it was a moment of gnosis because, again, you see it in the symbolism and the video Black Star, and you have to also watch Lazarus. It's almost like they're both part of the same movie,
Yes,
and you've got all the Saturn symbolism is everywhere. That video. It's so obvious. But you also have Bowie, for example, in both videos, he's got his eyes covered and he's complaining about the world. Well, who's that? That's Samael, the blind god of the Gnostics.
of
And then
course, yes.
you have the same actress in both movies. In Lazarus, she's like looking at Bowie, but she's hiding and she's sneaking around. Same with the Black Star, except she's part of this ritual to save the jeweled Major Tom, which could mean the divine spark of Bowie that's going to leave. And who's that? That's obviously Sophia. And when you put in the numerology of the women and the other characters, the trilogy of scarecrows, and I break it down. I use like three or four sources, including scholars, to break it down. It does show a very powerful Gnostic myth, but again, it also shows Bowie saying, "I am Saturn," because yeah, he's definitely complaining about that, and he says, "I'm not this, I'm not that, I failed." And of course, you wonder about that because let's be real. I mean, Bowie was very mystical. He studied Buddhism, almost quit the music industry to be a monk. He was always interested in metaphysics and in helping the world. But at the end of his life, he just ended up being another uh, new rich New Yorker with 100 million in his bank, the model wife, supermodel wife, appearing in wedding magazines, being part of the board of artistic places. So I wonder if at the end, for the last 20 years, Bowie realized I just ended up being part of the system, the matrix, instead of
Ah,
what I was doing in the 70s and 60s, which was trying to break the matrix, even though he almost died because of his addictions and other things. But maybe, and then he sold out, and then in the 80s, he became, kind of another Phil Collins, part of that group. These sort of boomer take over MTV with our music. And you wonder maybe he felt at the end he did sold out, he did sell out. He became just another cog in the wheel of the machine.
yeah, that's really cool. I like that better than the idea that he was sort of imagining himself as somehow like an incarnation
No, no,
of
no,
the
no, no.
demiurge, you know,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
because I can see how it could be interpreted that way, but really what you're talking about is a willingness to really look in the mirror and see the shadow.
Yeah, and at least get kind of a last confession, a sin, a dying ritual like in Catholicism, the last rite, like I really have sinned. I was human in the end and I was very faulty and this is what I want. But in this visions I had, he's still part of him is stuck. There's the divine part of him, the higher side, the Major Tom that went back, but there's still part of it in some etheric dimension. And he's calling us to say, help me and remember what my message was so that humanity doesn't destroy itself. Same as Elvis's message as he continues to make apparitions like, hey, people, we can get it together.
Wow, yeah, that's beautiful. So what both figures really ran into was the uh the Promethean fire, you know, how
Yeah,
do you wield that?
yeah,
Because
exactly. And both
it can
saw them
burn you and
themselves
destroy
as
you.
both saw themselves as messiahs. I mean, Elvis, he wanted to be another like history changing spiritual figure. He just never got the final download or the call. And Bowie, of course, saw himself as the savior of everything. I mean, Bowie made no qualms about these things.
That's just absolutely amazing. You know, I think doing great art takes great energy. You know, it really does. And you either have the energy to spare, or you get it from somewhere else in one way or another, or it just drains your life force until you're a husk, and the rest is history. So I see
Yeah.
that over and over again. It's one of the reasons why in my work I really focus on the cultivation of energy and the preservation of energy, so that we can do more with what we
Mhm.
have, what's available to us.
No, it's a good idea, but man, it's demanding. Sometimes I've even told my wife if I fall down dead, take the Bowie book to the publisher. 'Cause again, these are very powerful, high level figures. I mean, between that and Santa Muerte and Artemis, I don't know what I did in a past life, but it must have been bad. It must have
That's
been really
right.
bad.
That's right. Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, just obviously, I haven't read the book. I've read the other book, which was amazing. I have every confidence that they're going to like it and it's going to be successful, because why the hell wouldn't it be with that as a storyline?
Yeah, yeah. It's Bowie. It's got original sources and ideas. And again, I showed it to some people again that both are know more about Gnosticism than I do, and are Bowie fanatics, and they pass with the green lit by these people, by these friends. So again, it's channeled, so I'm confident, and it's a story that needs to be told. And I'm just a messenger, and hopefully, I'll be around when it comes out.
Well, I certainly hope you are, for sure.
I'm
And
so
then you got to
tired. I'm
write
so
what
tired.
you're so tired. Yeah. Man, you're gonna have to get back to some creative fiction.
Yeah, exactly. Go
Yeah, I'm
sell
like, yeah,
go sell insurance or something. Yeah. I don't know.
that's right. Yeah, I'm like, oh, can I just be given a really good fictional plot to just play
Yeah.
with and have
Right.
fun writing? Because I feel like the last few books I've written have been so heavy in some ways, you know, just that weight, not in the process of writing them actually, thankfully, but just the subject matter, the energy. I'm sitting here, you know, wanting to just thank you for opening my emails, even though this is some heavy shit.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But yeah, I'm grateful for the opportunity. What can I say? I don't know what to say.
Well, what would be the timeline for the book coming out, so that people have an idea? I know you don't know anything from the publisher, but when are you actually going to present it, and what might that mean?
I don't know. I would say probably in August. I'm doing some tweaks. I mean, a book is never finished. Obviously, as they say, writers don't finish books; they abandon them. So, but hopefully, by the end of my goal would be the end of 2026. Best case scenario.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. I hope to be definitely kept in the loop. I want to make sure that we're still being heard. Phil, you said sound of. You didn't mean sound off, did you? Are we still being heard? If anyone could chime in and let us know if our audio is still okay. Just wanted to make absolutely sure.
Let's see what
Yes.
the crowd says. Nobody's saying anything. I'm sure they can hear us. Yeah, good here. All right.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Appreciate
Thanks
that.
for
Really
that, Trey.
appreciate that. Thank you, Trey. So here we are. We've been going just about an hour, and I'm going to stick to my word here. Better than earlier, said John. That's good. All right. Thank you. So I would like to open it up to some questions. If you have questions, if you can write them in all caps, I'll have a look at them. Uh, and if you can't, that's okay. I will just do my best. But if you can do it in all caps, do that. And until we get stuff, I can't seem to. There we go. All good. So, in the meantime, I also wanted to ask. how your Gen X channel is doing here on Substack. The What is the actual title of that? I've been over there several times. It's the Gen X Wasteland, right?
Yeah, I haven't. That's been going well. I haven't been able to do a podcast in a couple of weeks again. Bowie kind of, whenever he takes over, I've got to give him attention, and then I've had so many personal issues outside. So, but yeah, it will continue. It's part of the Cult Elvis Substack. I'm actually writing a article about sinners and Elvis. So I'll probably so people will get a perspective of the connection of those movies. If anybody knows Michael B. Jordan or anybody of those who are into those ancient traditions, tell them I'm thinking of them and let them know. But yeah, so I'm just doing that. I think obviously once I get the book out or to the publisher, they accept it, and then I'll have a little more breathing room for a while to really get going with the blog.
Yeah, it's occultelvis.substack.com, and some of the recent material is Elvis Presley, the king of astral travel and psychic abilities. That's really cool. The Elvis before Elvis, the occult and rock and roll, Elvis, Yogananda, and the quest for self-realization. From fascist punk rocker to alchemical activist is a Gen X Wasteland podcast. Did Elvis Presley believe in reincarnation? The coolest Elvis conspiracies. And then there's also another podcast, Gen X Wasteland Jazz, Mystic Vibrations, and the Seven Hermetic Principles. So it's really, really fun and different stuff. And I think what I'm seeing taking shape here, Miguel, is something that's definitely, it definitely synergizes with your Aeon Byte material.
Mhm. Yeah,
You,
I would say so. Because again, when you have obviously Elvis was influenced by Gnosticism, and Gnosticism is shamanism, so you can tie in Sinners, you can tie in Bowie, certainly tie in Jim Morrison. That's for sure. I think. Have you read Paul Wilde's book on Jim Morrison?
he and I have connected on Instagram, and I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
also published by your publisher, correct?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good
Have
book
you
to
read
read.
it?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good book. He definitely, I think he takes not so much shamanism, but the Western esoteric tradition, which is fine because, again, you could write 4 or 5 occult books on Jim Morrison just as you could write 4 or 5 on Elvis or Bowie. That's how multifaceted and multidimensional Morrison is. But that's the angle he takes, and it's a valid one for sure. But definitely, yeah, good book to read.
So Trey wrote, after this interview, I'm compelled to read your book. So that's nice. And someone,
Yeah.
just a guy in the crowd, has a question. Did Elvis believe in Christ? And then do you?
Well, I'm going to borrow from Carl Jung when they ask him, "Do you believe in God?" He's like, "No, I know, I know." In other words, it's not much of belief; it's the experience. And for sure, Elvis had the experience. He was raised in the Pentecostal church, and it should be noted that other evangelical forms of Christianity hated the Pentecostals because they accused them of mixing salvation and sex. But Elvis was part of it, and their rituals as a kid when he was in his mother's belly, as a kid was going into these ecstatic states, not so much reading the Bible and really having an experience of the Holy Ghost. Later on, though, he became disillusioned with Christianity because so many pastors turned on him and wanted him jailed. And his own pastor said he was running with Satan and all that. And he started seeing these churches as businesses. He hated the idea of hellfire when he came to the conclusion about that reincarnation made more sense. He didn't like how the God of the Old Testament was acting and all that. So he moved away, but once he started reading Blavatsky, Manly P. Hall, and all that, he came to the idea of the Christ consciousness, the inner Christ, and how we could all become Jesus if we woke up, and how this was a force of good to awaken people. And that was more or less the Jesus of his life. But Jesus was his main dude, but it was a different Jesus than the one he grew up with.
All right, that's a great answer. I lots of food for thought there. Someone's asking, John is asking, what would be the middle path or between shamanism and Gnosticism? Where would you look to find balance, so to speak?
No, that's not a bad question at all. I think it's about changing your thinking. There's no difference between Gnosticism and shamanism. They are very much the same, except Gnosticism is an ancient mystery tradition that was, again, they put different clothes on it, but it is shamanism, and it has all the bells and whistles of shamanism. I mean, the shaman goes down into the underworld. What does he do? He's got to contend with evil spirits. We call them archons. The shaman has to, be dismembered like Osiris. I mean, there's so much there. The shaman is about healing the tribe, and most Gnostic rituals are about psychic and spiritual and even bodily healing. People forget the Gnostic rituals are about healing a lot about your body. They were healers. So they're more or less the same. But if you want to know what they mean, it's always at the crossroads. These days, that's where we need to go. That liminal space, that Bardo, that place where the trickster lies. That's where our salvation and damnation is, and we'll find out it's one and the same.
Hmm. Very nice. Very nice. I've come to interpret the crossroads as the kind of hypnagogic state between waking and sleeping when you can go into the lucid state.
Bingo. Yeah, no doubt.
That's really, really cool. One question I have for you, which is, if you have or you haven't, but have you seen the new Netflix show Chaos starring Jeff Goldblum?
Oh, that's where he plays Zeus?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched the first episode and it didn't do too much for me. I know he was being a very good demiurge. He was great.
He was great,
But
right?
yeah, no
Because it
doubt.
has Orpheus and Eurydice and the journey down into
Uh,
hell.
and
That's why I asked the
Prometheus
question.
and yeah, it just didn't something about the supporting cast and the plot just wasn't doing. Maybe I'll reloop. I mean, if you watch the Sandman series, obviously it has the Orpheus story, which is very good, but obviously I've read it 1,000 times in the comic book. So that's right there, Orpheus, how important he is as a great symbol of the shaman throughout history and
And
the rock star.
season 2 is about to be released for that.
Yeah, yeah. I just watched the first half. It's already out.
Oh, it's
So
already
they
out.
they do have the Orpheus storyline, so it's there and it's good. Yeah, and at the Crossroads, I should also mention. Remember, I mean, the great story of the Crossroads is Robert Johnson. Although some say it actually was the guy named Tommy Johnson. It doesn't matter. And he was the great symbol of the Crossroads. And he guess when he died. Well, you probably know you read the book. He died on August 16th. So he died
So
the same day as
it's
Elvis,
Elvis.
39
Yeah.
years early. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's just
something is there.
wild. That is really, really wild. It's there's a scene in the movie La Vie Héroïque, the heroic life. I don't know what the title is in English, but it's the biopic of Serge Gainsbourg, and he was studying with Django Reinhardt early on to be a
Mm,
jazz guitarist, right? That's what he
wow.
wanted to be. And his daemon came to him, and they fictionalized this and visualized this in the movie. It's the kind of evil the trickster figure who is his animus, really,
Mm,
who comes to him and guides him out of being a painter or trying to be just a jazz guitarist and virtuoso musician. And he's like, saying, you don't need what you think you need. We could burn off your fingers. Django has only two fingers. But it's really incredible how the movie takes Serge's life and really turns it into an absolutely shamanic process of courting the same powers that we've been talking about in this
right.
discussion.
Exactly.
So to check out Heroic Life or whatever the heck it's called, it's beautifully done. So I think we're at the end of the questions here. Wait, whoa, whoa, whoa,
No,
whoa.
see Rachel. Yeah,
Oh, good,
Rachel.
good. I didn't scroll down. Graham asked what changed in Elvis during his army stint, and there was there's been a lot of documentaries and stuff on that, but that is a fascinating question.
Well, we really don't know. I mean, John Lennon said that Elvis going into the army killed him. So I guess he got killed him like Paul McCartney, I suppose. But I think he really had to go to the army because it was such a firestorm, and you had agencies like the FBI and local governments. They were ready to, what they did to Jim Morrison, arrest him. And some say that once Jim Morrison got thrown in jail, he was never the same. It's
Right,
a way of
right.
breaking you. And they, Elvis he was going to go there or worse. I mean, he was always being attacked by jealous husbands and boyfriends, and he had a bullseye on him like nobody had. So it almost seems fortuitous that he went to the army. I mean, he was drafted. He wasn't going to use his money and power to get out because it's not something he would have done. Some say he could have used the excuse that if you were a provider, like let's say you're a young husband and you have children and a young wife, you don't get drafted in the 50s because Elvis was he was employing thousands of people already and taking care of his parents. He could have gotten out. I don't know. There's a lot, but I don't know if anything really changed all that. I mean, by the time it was 1960, he and the Colonel were ready to explore new avenues, like David Bowie. They weren't just going to sit forever with the rockabilly stuff. They wanted to explore. That's why people don't know that Elvis's greatest hit, his best-selling hit is It's Now or Never. And it's a song that has so much legs, like The Dark Side of the Moon. And it's based on an Italian opera, if you listen to it. And because Elvis really liked Italian opera at the time, and he felt like doing a record about it. So
I
I
love it.
don't, yeah, I don't see any, like, it's just the trajectory of Elvis Presley, who he was often maybe not as much as a chameleon as Bowie, but he really was. He was always looking for new ground to break, new things to try out, and
Absolutely.
so forth. That's just what he did.
I know during his stint in the army, he got extremely anxious about his career kind of passing him by. And
Right.
I feel like a lot of the creative energy in the well, the river got backed up a long way. There was a lot of creative force when he came out,
Yeah.
and hooked back up with the Colonel.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, he did put out albums while he was in the army, and they sold a ton. So, but yeah, he was always worried that the fans would stop loving him.
That was the thing. Yeah,
That's normal for I think most rock musicians that you'll wake up one day and nobody likes you, imposter syndrome. But the
for
fans
sure.
really he loved him. He really truly loved him very much, and he was always worried. But he always was able to hit the right note. I mean, we forget that in the 60s, Elvis was one of the top box office stars in the world. He was making the kind of money that Paul Newman and Elizabeth Taylor were making. In the 70s, he was once again the number one solo artist in the world. So he was usually pretty well at reinventing himself and pivoting where he needed to go.
No doubt. So let's see. Christina asked, question for both of us: how do you manage the amount of books you read for your podcast and research? You've mentioned wonderful books here. My to read stat keeps growing. So
Wonderful book. Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know I'm from the Gen X time where, remember, if we were bored, we went down to the bookstore, we grabbed some books, and we'd read them over the weekend. We'd read them at the park, we'd read them going to places. We always had a book, so reading fast was always just part of our lifestyle. In this day and age, I mean, she's right. I like to lean on audiobooks when my plate is too full. So if I'm driving around or,
yeah,
doing yard work or walking the dogs, I can listen to an audiobook and still get the information. And if there's something important, I'll just go back and, annotate it in the physical copy. So there's definitely hacks you can do today.
for sure. I do that too. And if I'm not reading it for plot, for example,
Right.
I will often read. I will kind of spot read something and synthesize from that perspective. And frankly, a lot of what I'm recommending to people these days is to stop reading so much stuff and to go inside more into yourself, and explore that territory, explore the crossroads.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, definitely for sure.
Let's see. Anything else here? Someone wanted to. Let's see. I think we are at the hour 15 mark, which is about what I hoped we would get to in one piece. So here we are.
We weren't dismembered
I think
like
we
Osiris.
navigated this app beautifully, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it was good. I like the sort of freestyle. Let's just see where it goes, and good audience questions, and yeah, good people in the audience. I like their comments.
Absolutely. I want to thank everybody for being here. It was great to have you. I was really happy to see a lot of people filing in. And I want to just once again remind you to check out the Occult Elvis. Check out occultelvis.substack.com. Check out the Aeon Byte, that's AEON Byte, BYTE YouTube channel. Really, really good stuff. And if you haven't checked out my world, that's saulluckman.substack.com. Please stop by and say howdy. Miguel, my friend, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time. This was a major Gnosis download. It was awesome. You were great, and I look forward to following your career because it's just gonna take off. I have this amazing feeling.
Yeah, if I make it again, I am just like you. We are just vessels. We're here to do a job. That's what we came for.
Well, I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. And with that said, I'm going to end our live. It'll be going up on our respective channels, hopefully here, and people can continue to watch this going forward.